I have been following this corruption and bribery investigation into Senator Bob Menendez. Now, unfortunately, in these sorts of cases, all too often, we've seen members of the political establishment that have been charged with corruption, or it's been speculated they have been protected. They've received special protection and special treatment. It seems like that's what Senator Menendez was expecting in this case. He actually asked specifically for special treatment in the trial last week. However, the judge handling this case, seems like we could see a different outcome. We'll have to follow this, but the judge is seriously butting heads with Senator Menendez and his lawyer, or at least it seems based on the official transcripts that we see from the courts. This was the article from Politico from today. It reads that U.S. District Court Judge William H. Walz told a lawyer for Senator Robert Menendez, the lawyer representing Menendez, the judge told him to shut up for a moment as the two engaged in a heated argument during the first moments of the New Jersey Democrats corruption trial. This was shortly after the court proceedings began, when defense attorney Raymond Brown criticized Judge William H. Walz for a line in his opinion on Friday. Now, I previously reported on this. This was after Menendez had requested that the trial be recessed. He asked for ongoing delays in the trial due to the fact that he's a senator. So the judge rejected Menendez's request that the trial be recessed on days where the Senate is taking, quote, critical votes, so that the senator can be in Washington. This was asked by Menendez's lawyers. The judge at the time rejected this request. He said that it was no different than any other individual who has to leave their job for a trial case, and that the senator did not deserve special treatment in this case. Today, as a follow-up to that argument, the attorney representing Menendez responded, "Quite frankly, Your Honor, that language is extremely prejudicial to the defense, and it comes from the court. I think the court has disparaged the defense." Brown was not completely clear on which passage he was referring to, but it appears that to be this part of Walz's opinion, that the court suspects that the trial strategy behind this motion, if granted, would be to impress the jurors with the public importance of the defendant, senator, and his duties. There's no other plausible reason comes to mind. This was what the judge said the motive behind asking to delay this trial was, that he was trying to impress the jurors. The judge called Senator Menendez out and his lawyer for what he believed was this sort of backhanded motive behind this request. The defendant lawyer responded that Walz was speculative as to our motives. Brown and Walz then began talking over each other. This is when the judge stepped in and said, "Shut up for a moment, if you don't mind. I said what I said," quote, "to underscore what I considered the lack of merits in this motion," Walz added. Walz said he didn't disparage you. The judge went on to say, now I feel quasi-insulted. You tell me where I have ever speculated to affect the interest of a defendant before a jury. Walz said, I want you to tell me where I have done something that reasonable jurors and lawyers would consider speculative and proactive. Menendez's attorney requested that the lines be struck from the judge's opinion. Walz has denied the request. He says what your request lacks is relevance. There is no relevance to the issues in this case found in your subpoenas, and so consequently they're not only vague, but they're without relevance, and therefore the motion to quash is granted, he said. It's also notable, some people were pointing this out earlier this week, that some mainstream media sources have finally been forced to report on this story. There's a few somewhat mainstream conservative outlets that have been following this trial as it's developed for some months. The Daily Caller first reported on a potential underage sex scandal involving Senator Menendez back in 2012, and this is in part what kicked off this investigation years ago. Only now is this trial starting, but other mainstream outlets, the New York Times, did report on this, it was notable, and many people criticized the Times coverage for the fact that it seems that they just happened to forget the fact that Menendez is a member of the Democrat Party. They wrote a 1,300-word article on the trial this week, a nearly 1,300-word news story on Monday night about Democratic New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez's corruption trial, without ever mentioning Menendez's party affiliation. They failed to mention in this over 5-page report that he was a Democrat. Both in print and on social media, the New York Times failed to inform its readers that Senator Menendez is a Democrat. So it seems like they're intentionally not bringing that up, and you would think that it's important to begin with, but it's particularly important in this case because we don't, in my view, know the exact scope or the scale of this bribery and corruption, who else may have been involved, and it actually, from the information that we do know, it seems like other Democrats were involved. We actually already, in fact, know that Senate Minority Leader, former Senate Minority Leader Senator Harry Reid, asked the Obama White House to help the donor to Menendez. This is the doctor who is charged with bribing Menendez with hundreds of thousands of dollars in gifts. Menendez, it seems, asked the Senate Majority Leader, this was the original report from the Daily Caller, Menendez tried to get Harry Reid to personally ask the Obama administration to help this Florida eye doctor who was accused of paying Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes, according to the Department of Justice. The senator asked Reid in November 2011 to pressure the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services to drop its ruling against Dr. Solomon Melgen. This is the doctor that bribed Senator Menendez, according to the charges that have been laid, wherein the agency claimed the eye doctor overbilled Medicaid for $8.9 million, nearly $9 million. It's alleged that Dr. Solomon Melgen, stole $9 million in it's mostly taxpayer funds that funds Medicaid, and Senator Menendez went to Harry Reid to ask the Obama administration to try and apply pressure. He asked an Obama aide to try and apply pressure on the administration to intervene in the case and help this criminal doctor. But the aide, this is what's officially been reported, is that the aide refused to get involved in the matter after he realized the case involved a single doctor and a federal agency. That's the official response from the Obama aide, that he did not get involved, but he does admit that Harry Reid asked him to intervene in this criminal case on behalf of the criminal doctor. It's unclear if Harry Reid did talk to other people in the Obama administration, if he did find a way to contact Obama, if there were other Democrats involved. But even knowing that it goes this far, and even if there weren't, if it wasn't known that other Democrats were involved, this is one of the first things that you would mention in the New York Times article, the party that he belongs to, and specifically with that Harry Reid angle, which they did not mention. They didn't mention his party affiliation. Seems like some mainstream media outlets are intentionally leaving a lot of this info out. Now, this case does go back some years, as I mentioned, and it is notable that these original charges are not being laid out in the case as it stands currently. Now, there was a report from the Daily Caller in 2012 that some of these charges had apparently or officially been knocked down. It's been disproven, according to some mainstream reports or according to Menendez's lawyers. It doesn't seem like they're part of the trial as it exists right now. But this was a follow-up to this was years after the report on this underage sex scandal involving Menendez, which they later said was discredited. This was still years later, and you have actual federal prosecutors in this case expanding on the original discredited, they say, allegations. So even though these allegations are discredited, and I'll just read from this article, it seems like it's possible that the original people that made these allegations that later took them back, they could have been paid off by this wealthy doctor and Senator Menendez, or threatened or coerced into in some other way to take back these charges. Even without these charges, even going beyond them, federal prosecutors through this investigation back in 2015, they mentioned a lot more circumstantial evidence that points that there could be a lot more to this particular aspect of the case, which it's interesting. It seems like it's been dropped at this point. But let me just read some from this report back from 2015. It reads, federal prosecutors said that they aren't convinced claims U.S. Senator Robert Menendez cavorted with underage hookers widely seen as discredited at that time in 2015. The allegations originally from 2012. Federal prosecutors still aren't convinced that those claims are false. In 2015, they say. Lawyers for the New Jersey Democrat last week asked a federal judge to dismiss the charges that the senator took bribes from a Florida eye doctor. That is still being a key part of the trial right now, the bribes from Solomon Melgen. And there is evidence that he took these hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes, in exchange used his power to do business and personal favors for him. The defense has said that the claims about underage prostitutes were easily disprovable. This was based off 3 women who made the prostitution allegations. They later recanted and said they were paid to level the charges. Again, it's possible, in my view, that they were paid to take back these charges by Melgen or Menendez, actually. Now, neither Melgen nor Menendez was charged with soliciting underage prostitutes, but in a motion Monday asking the judge to ignore the defense arguments, Justice Department lawyers say the hooker allegations, quote, were not so easily disprovable as the defendants suggest. Prosecutors used the defense claims to highlight previously undisclosed tidbits of Menendez's pursuit of younger women. The lawyers say their investigation resulted from specific corroborated allegations that defendants Menendez and Melgen had sex with underage prostitutes in the Dominican Republic. There was a response denying it from Menendez's lawyer. The prosecutors go on to say there's more filing. The filing discloses circumstantial information indirectly linking Menendez to prostitutes. The prosecutors noted eyewitness testimony that Melgen, the doctor, 61 years old, attended a party that included prostitutes and that he flew, quote, numerous young women to the Dominican Republic on his private jet. There is more. Some further quotes from the prosecutors. They say many of these young women received substantial financial support from defendant Melgen. Melgen flew 2 strippers he met at a South Florida gentleman's club to his villa after paying them a combined $3,000, the government prosecutor said. A pilot has also described a series of, quote, young girls who, quote, look like escorts, the pilot says, on Melgen's plane. He says that he's seen these people. Some of the young women who received substantial sums of money from defendant Melgen were in the same place as defendant Menendez at the same times, the government also noted. Prosecutors say when the allegations about hookers surfaced, Menendez lied, making the, quote, demonstrably false claim that he'd only flown on Melgen's plane 3 times. This was later proven false. Menendez's defense complained that prosecutors flooded the grand jury proceedings with inflammatory questions regarding sexual relationships, affairs, lavish gifts, which are unrelated to the charges. This is what the defense has claimed. But prosecutors responded saying that they did not interview or subpoena all of Melgen and Menendez's girlfriends. They called only those who were involved in the corrupt exchange where Menendez used his power to help, quote, Melgen bring his foreign girlfriends into the United States, while Melgen used his wealth to help, quote, Menendez take his American girlfriends on exotic overseas vacations. So Menendez has claimed that they went out of their way to imply he had an improper relationship with a female staffer. Prosecutors noted that the aide stayed with Menendez at Melgen's villa twice and flew there with the senator on Melgen's jet. Those flights, quote, Menendez did not pay for or report and continued to conceal after the allegations surfaced, prosecutors said. So that is some significant information, and as far as I know, those charges, those three witnesses that were originally named back in 2012, they had recanted. They were not being used in this case. I guess that's makes sense. But these further corroborating statements and the additional circumstantial evidence that prosecutors put forward about this movement of escorts in and out of the country, the quotes from this pilot, there is a lot more to that aspect of the scandal, I think, than is currently being reported. So we will have to see if there's any more of again that aspect of the scandal that is further part of this trial if it's brought up. A little bit more on the judge that's following this trial. Just finally, Judge Walz. This was another report from the Daily Caller, and this could be promising. It seems that he has a fairly good track record of being, quote, brutal on corrupt politicians. This is the way the Daily Caller has described it. This article, it just explains a couple cases with this judge regarding corrupt politicians previously. The article itself, it reads, the federal judge presiding over New Jersey Democrat Senator Bob Menendez's trial for corruption, he has a history of ruthlessness with underhanded politicians. U.S. District Judge William Walz usually deals stiff sentences to public officials convicted of corruption. He's even berated prosecutors he perceives as soft on ethics violations. President Bill Clinton actually was the one to appoint Walz to the federal bench in 1994. In the intervening period, he has presided over the trials of a county official who stole federal housing money, as well as a small-town mayor who accepted bribes from developers. In the first instance, he upbraided prosecutors for requesting a sentence of 3 years probation. Walz suggested the prosecutors cared more about securing wins than serving justice. This was a quote. It reads, the society is being swindled and your office seems to care about notching wins, he told prosecutors, according to local press. In the second instance, the judge handed down a 58-month prison sentence for Ocean Township Mayor Terrence Weldon, despite prosecutors' pleas for leniency. Federal officials argued Weldon deserved a lighter sentence because of his extensive cooperation with investigators. They further argued a lengthy jail term would deter future defendants from assisting police. The judge responded, quote, as far as I'm concerned, the commission of such crimes deserves severe punishment. Walz said at Weldon's sentencing, quote, he says, it does us no good to pat him on the wrist. The jury selection phase of Menendez's criminal trial is already underway in New Jersey. He faces 14 felony counts on various corruption charges. This Senator Menendez, it's also notable, he's previously attempted to escape indictment by arguing his activities were protected by the Constitution's Speak and Debate Clause, which protects lawmakers from prosecution in connection with official legislative work. The Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals disagreed, and the Supreme Court declined to take the matter up in March, so it has moved forward to trial. As I opened this video, I'm sure many that have been following this case or similar cases, they've seen this unfortunate pattern where these establishment politicians, Menendez has been a senator for many years, they do seem to be protected in many of these investigations, or when these sorts of things do actually move forward to trial as well. This particular judge, if there was a judge that was going to hand down a significant, actual tough sentence on a politician for corruption charges, this seems like one of the few possibly federal judges that could actually properly punish Menendez for this corruption. Let me know what you think is happening in this case. Obviously, I will follow up as this trial continues. We'll get more information. I will follow up shortly. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you could leave a like on this video, it's greatly appreciated, and subscribe to the channel. Finally, I just remind people I'm over at patreon.com/realityreader. Thank you, everybody that's donated. It makes a huge difference. Even $1 or $2, it just allows me to keep reporting on these sorts of things. I will check back shortly. Thanks again, everyone.